He said that all I needed to do was to jump head first. He used those specific words, the thing that had just had such an impression on me in the dream, that the man was falling head first towards the ground. And he said that I just jumped head first. And at that moment, I saw the dream all over again. And I knew who I had been praying for. I wasn't praying just for some man. I was praying for my oldest son.
Welcome to When You Look, where ordinary people share their extraordinary experiences, and you get to decide, was it coincidence or God?
Hey, Pat, thanks so much for joining us here on When You Look. Really glad to have you on the show. Before we jump into your story, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. My name's Pat Doise. I'm 73 years young. I've lived in Louisiana all my life, different parts of Louisiana, but in the state for the whole year. I've been married for more than 50 years to a beautiful, precious woman named Charlotte. I have 3 sons. Had a career in telecommunications. Retired young at about 51, and went into Christian education and taught and coached there, and enjoyed that. And now I'm mostly retired. I still do a little bit of substitute teaching at a school.
Awesome. Well, thanks a bunch, Pat, for being on the show. When You Look is powered by firsthand accounts and firsthand experiences, and you have exactly that. So give us a little bit of the backstory and then walk us through the rest of the story as it occurred for you.
All right. The story took place in November of 1993. I had had a dream, and it's very unusual for me to remember dreams. I hardly ever remember a dream. What the dream was a man just falling down, looked like he was falling down from the sky, head first, hands spread out, looked like Superman headed to the ground. And so I said, Lord, what do I do with this? And he said, pray for the man. I said, okay, can you be more specific? What do I pray? What's happening to him, whatsoever? And all he would say was, pray for the man. I said, okay, Lord, I'll take that. So with 2 or 3 days, and every time I'd think about the dream, I would pray for that man who was falling through the sky down towards the earth. And one night, my wife and I were just so peacefully sleeping, and the telephone rang. Those were the days that we still had a landline. And the phone was on her side of the bed, so she answered the phone. And I could tell there was a little concern in her voice when she was talking. And then after a little while, I could tell she was talking to our oldest son, Corey. And then after a little longer, she said, here, Pat, you talk to Corey. So I talked to Corey, and he started telling me about what had just happened. He was in the hospital. There was a fire at his dorm, and he said, Dad, our dorm burnt. And he said, when at first we heard knocking on the door of our dorm room, and so people screaming in the hallways. So my roommate and I ran to the door, and we opened the door, and we could see the fire, the flames in the hallway. He said my roommate took off running, and he said I could look down the hall and see flames coming off his clothes. He was on fire. He said I kind of gathered that wasn't the best remedy to take, so I closed the door, started stuffing blankets under the door to try to slow down the fire. And he said, then I heard screaming coming out of our window, a window that usually had an air conditioner in it, but he said the air conditioner had evidently fallen out. So he said, I looked out the window, and there were people down there screaming, just yelling and yelling. And then when they saw me, they said, jump. So he said, that all I needed to do was to jump head first. He used those specific words, the thing that had just had such an impression on me in the dream, that the man was falling head first towards the ground. And he said, Dad, I just jumped head first. And at that moment, I saw the dream all over again. And I knew who I had been praying for. I wasn't praying just for some man. I was praying for my oldest son. And when that fire started, when the wake-up call came from the knocking on the door, a lot of other students said they saw the man who was knocking on the doors. And they said it was a young man that they had never seen before. And they were looking around at the fire after everybody gathered, and they couldn't see him then either. So it's very likely that was an angel sent by God to wake up these young men. And I believe what the devil meant for evil, God had warned me and probably other people too. There may have been other people praying too. So no one was killed, no one died. Some people were injured, but no one passed away. And God took it, I think, to make a testimony. And that's why I'm here, is to give the testimony. And I appreciate what he did, appreciate it. My sons were precious to me all their lives. I felt like they're gifts from God. And I'm just so glad that God chose me to pray for that situation. So it took some healing time. When he jumped out, he actually went through a tree limbs and cut his face open and had some minor burns. His hair, at the hospital, they told him his hair was singed. That's how hot it was. That's how close he was to the fire. So, but, we're just very thankful that he's still with us.
All right, Pat, let me just recap this because there is so much neat stuff there. So you believe you're like most people that would dream or dream regularly, but don't necessarily remember those dreams. But this one was different, and it had a specific and kind of direct impact on you because you remembered it. So you then said to God, so what am I supposed to do with this? And God says, pray for that person. And that person was completely unidentified. But then within a couple of days or so, you find out that your son had to jump head first in the same way that the person in the dream had to jump head first out of a burning building.
Right. And I found it so godlike, I guess, that when my son told me, he used those very words. He said that all I knew to do was jump head first. For those 2 or 3 days, I kept wondering, why is this guy coming down head first? Most people, when they jump, they jump with their feet first. But he was coming down head first, and Corey used those 2 specific words. All I knew to do was to jump head first.
But then, as you mentioned, so everybody survived.
Yes.
And Corey obviously had some injuries, but he's otherwise alive and well. And then you mentioned what you believe to be an angel running down the hallway. And obviously there's major impacts of that as well. So Pat, thank you so much for sharing that story. I want to ask you a question that we ask everybody on When You Look, and that is, was it coincidence or God?
I have no doubt it was God, that God just, he gave me that dream. I'm not saying God gives every dream that people have, but he gave me that one. And I just appreciate the fact that when I communicated with him in the spirit realm, that he just told me, pray for the man. And I'm convinced he didn't tell me that it was my son or all the details, because I probably would have messed it all up then. I'd have got scared and nervous and messed it all up. So he told me just what I needed to know to be praying for my son and all the other young men in that dorm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The follow-on question then, Pat, is how has your life changed as a result of this specific scenario and story?
Well, I guess the big thing is it was such an encouragement. See, I prayed for my sons on a regular basis, all 3 of them, still do, even though they're all grown men now. But then particularly I'd pray for them on a regular basis. And it became obvious to me that God heard my prayers and that he answered my prayers, in that he protected my son at this time when, this was the oldest building on the university campus. They tell me it was burnt to the ground in just minutes. So all this happened it didn't take much longer than it took me to tell the story. So things had to happen real quickly for those guys to be saved. And it just encouraged me that, when I pray, he was really listening.
Praise God. Praise God. Pat, thank you so much for sharing. When You Look is powered by these awesome stories, and we genuinely appreciate the fact that you shared your firsthand account with us. We wish you all the best. Thanks a bunch, and we'll chat soon.
All right. God bless you too.
Hey, everybody. You just heard Pat share his amazing account of the events that happened surrounding the Ellis Hall fire at Lee College in 1993. In the description and comments, we'll add additional links to some news articles, but a couple of things to highlight, and that is that the fire was first reported around 2:25 a.m., It took approximately 100 firefighters to control the blaze by around 5 a.m., and all 73 of the residents were rescued from the building safely. So quite an amazing story, which brings us then to the question, was it coincidence or God? And you get to decide for yourself, but I believe that you just heard a story for his glory. When You Look is powered by firsthand accounts of amazing stories. And if you have a story to share, let us know by going to whenyoulook.com and clicking on Be a Guest, or use the link in the description below. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on it, and let us know what you think, and share it with someone that you believe will be impacted by the story. Until next time, God bless.